Hello everyone, it's the Preacher coming at you with a brand new video. And today I'll be talking about a very interesting topic that a lot of people get caught up on. It's violence in Christianity. Now, as someone who likes debates and seeing how debates between religion and atheism or different religions pan out, I see this brought up quite a bit. And I don't really think it's ever handled very well. You see, a lot of times it ends up being like, oh, Christians, they've done so many violent things, the Crusades, the Inquisition, the pilgrims who were Christian came over and, killed all the Native Americans. As you look, there's a lot of violence that has come in the history of Christianity. And I don't think many Christians know how to deal with this argument, or if they do, they don't deal with it correctly. Because oftentimes it just ends up, well, your religion or whatever you believe also has violence in it. And this is a logical fallacy. It's just kind of saying, yeah, we're bad, but you're just as bad. And that shouldn't really be happening. So today, what I would like to talk about is why violence in Christianity happens and why it isn't as big as a deal as a lot of people would like to think. So you see, one thing about this, something came to mind that when talking about Christianity, and I've mentioned this before, you can be saved and not be a Christian. See, in the Bible, there's a lot of people who followed God, but it says in the Bible they were first called Christians at Antioch. And that's after amazing things have taken place. They were preaching, people were getting saved, like great miracles were being done. Because being Christian literally means to be Christ-like. And nowadays, being a Christian is just kind of the catch-all term of everyone who's saved. And that's a very bad way to look at it, I would say, that you can be saved and not be doing what God wants you to do. And it makes it very clear in the Bible, in the Old Testament and in the New, there were people who followed God, who was following God, every day. But when they did something wrong, God corrected them. And that's the thing, that as a Christian, you can make mistakes and bad things can happen, and you need to just get right with God. So here's the issue that a lot of people bring up, like, oh, in the Old Testament, it just talks about violence, about killing people, on and on and on. But what people don't understand is, unlike other religions, such as Islam, the verses on violence in the Bible are very historically tied with what was going on at that time. In the Old Testament, when God tells them, go and fight these people, they were typically in wars with those people. And the Bible makes it very clear that you should defend your country. It talks about that in the first 4 verses of Romans 13. It's specifically saying, if you are a soldier, you should absolutely follow your upper powers because, that shows goodwill towards them, unless they're asking you to do evil things. And you see, in the Old Testament, the people they were fighting were horrible, evil people. And I think oftentimes people forget about this, that I see a lot of people say, oh, this was genocide in the Old Testament, that God commanded them to wipe out entire cities and groups of people. Well, what they don't understand, that those people hated God, and oftentimes they were very against the Israel people, living as nomads at that time. You see that at this time, human sacrifice was an easy thing. Reading about how bad Israel got, just imagine how worse all these surrounding nations were. And many times, well, every time, it mentions like God commanding them to go destroy these certain people because they're hateful, evil people who really want to destroy the Israelites, who want no part of God. It's them stopping an evil from growing. It's like God commanding the Israelites to go stop evil. And this cannot be taken out of place when you're reading it like that, because it's God directly telling them to go stop these certain people because they are doing evil and they're doing wrong in the sight of God. And even when there were times when it's not commanded, for example, David killing Uri, I do believe I'm pronouncing that right, the husband of Bathsheba, that God punished David for that because that was murder. Now that guy did not deserve to die. That he was a good, righteous man. Says that he David put him in the front of the lines, and it didn't. It says that he doesn't even complain that he was put in the front in a place that was basically certain death. You know, Uri was a very good, righteous man, but God did not say to kill that man. That is murder, and so God directly punished him for that. It says in the law, like, you should not kill. That murder is wrong, but you should defend your nation. So I have a few verses brought up, specifically dealing with this type of thing, and also have some verses, I guess, brought up in the Quran. I'm not sure if they're referred to as verses or not, but you kind of know what I mean. And just to see the difference between them. And the first one that comes to mind is Matthew 26, 51 and 52. It says, "And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand, and drew his sword, and struck a servant of the high priest, and smote off his ear. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword." This is very, very obvious that it's Jesus telling this guy who just cut off his high priest's ear, because this is when they're coming to take Jesus away, to crucify him. He says, put up your sword, because, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And it mentions how many people are persecuted in the New Testament. It basically says you should take your persecution, that you should not fight against to avenge yourself. And there's a great other verse that comes up about this. This is probably one of my favorite sections about this. It's in Romans 12, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And it says, "If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing that thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good." So this is I think that really sums up well. I think that sums up pretty well. It says, don't do evil against people. If someone comes to do evil for you, pay them back with good. That, God will give them what's coming to them for doing evil to you. And that's kind of the whole idea about this. The Crusades, Inquisition, what we did to the Native Americans. Those people who did that could claim they were Christians, but they would have to know a large portion of the Bible. And I think that's what a lot of people who make this argument forget, is that you can claim you're a Christian and not do anything Christian. You could claim you live by the Bible and do absolutely nothing by the Bible. And these men doing evil things against the Bible does not drag down Christianity any, because they have to ignore so much teachings of Jesus. They have to ignore so much teachings of of Christianity as a whole. They have to ignore God to do these evil things. And for them to do that does not take away from what God taught or what Jesus taught, because they're going against God and Jesus when they're doing these evil things. Now, in comparison, I brought something up in the Quran here. It's I will leave a name somewhere around me because I cannot pronounce these names. But you find that it says, "It was the time when the Lord revealed to the angels to convey to the believers, I am with you. And he commanded the angels to make those who believe stand firm and fast. And, O believers, I will indeed strike terror in the hearts of those who disbelieve. So smite on your enemies' necks, and above these, on their heads, and strike off all their fingertips. This punishment is given them because they have cut themselves off from Allah and His Messenger. And whosoever opposes Allah and His Messenger, as its result, Allah too is severe in punishment to such. That is your punishment, so suffer some of it in this life, and know that in the hereafter there awaits the disbelievers the torment of fire." So specifically it says this punishment is given them because they cut themselves off from Allah and His Messenger. See, that's not really tied with history. That's a really open-ended verse. Basically, if you are against Islam, if you're not listening to Allah and His Messenger, then it's okay to kill them. It says specifically strike off their necks, their heads, their fingertips. It's not tied with history. It's not God telling the Islamic people, hey, you're in battle with these people, so go kill them to stop evil. It's specifically telling them, feel free to kill the people who just don't believe Islam. That's not tied with history. That's not tied with anything. That's not tied with anything that they were doing at the time. That's a very open-ended verse of violence. So I think that I hope I've explained it to some degree where it's understandable, that it's understandable to say that when it comes to verses of violence in the Bible, it's specifically talking about God sending them to end evil. And when it shows that when they went out to kill people or to do war with someone that God hadn't sent them to, they got punished for it. That God does not want violence, but you should defend your nation, because you should defend your nation against both foreign and domestic evils, as the Old Testament makes good notice of this, that it's very tied with history and tied with God sending them to end evil. But in other religions, such as Islam, it's not like this. That the verses of Islam in the Quran, it's specifically talking just end all those who don't believe. And that's a very open-ended verse. But I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learned something. If you liked it, like, favorite, subscribe. Leave a comment if you have a question or a comment, I guess, just anything you want to say. I do look at all the comments. There aren't that many, but I do look at them, and I do try to respond in video when I get the chance. So thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you have a good Thanksgiving week. Bye, guys.